You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
It's McGuire Mondays. Oh, it's not Monday. It's McGuire Wednesdays. Dan O'Toole, Pierre McGuire. Pierre, I keep seeing online people asking, the Winnipeg Jets, are they for real? I think at this point we can say the Winnipeg Jets are for real because that's all anyone's talking about in the NHL are the Jets.
100%, Dan. You couldn't be more correct about that. You think about the Jets and what they're doing right now. They're getting scoring from all four lines. They're getting unbelievable defensive play. They're getting elite goaltending, and it doesn't matter who's in goal. But the biggest thing is impact players are making an impact. Mark Scheifele's making an impact. Kyle Connor is making an impact. Adam Lowry's making an impact. The power play is impactful. The coaching from Scott Arniel and the staff is impactful. The penalty killing is impactful. This is an elite team right now. We'll see if it can last long term, but right now they're outstanding.
For Scott Arniel, behind the bench, it must be a kind of a funky headspace. He's like, is this real life right now?
Well, he's been at it a long time as a coach. You know, whether his first go-around as a head coach in Columbus or being an assistant in a lot of different places around the league. He was a tremendous player, by the way. I don't think he gets enough credit for the kind of player. He was a rough, tough, grinding kind of a player. He's always had success everywhere he's gone, Dan. But I would say the headspace must be just a little bit different for him now because I don't think anybody thought that the Winnipeg Jets would be 15-1 to start the season.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up his Hockey DB, my favorite website. He is a former Winnipeg Jet. Also played for the Sabres and then finished with the Boston Bruins. Mm-hmm. He played 730 games in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
That's an impressive resume.
100%. Look at his junior record.
Oh, yeah, with the the Manitoba Moose. Oh, no, so that's his coaching record.
Yeah.
His junior record with the Cornwall Royals.
Yeah.
He had 52 goals in the 80-81 season.
That's correct. He was a really good player. He was a tremendous player. And I remember watching him play a ton, and one of his real good teammates was Dale Hawerchuk, the late Dale Hawerchuk. So, you know, I've been watching Scott play for a long time. I've watched him coach for a long time. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And I think having been through it myself, you learn from your previous jobs what you did right, what you did wrong, what you need to correct. And I think Scott has learned that over time.
Real quick, who's the one player where you look at their one junior season and you say, how is that even humanly possible?
Mario Lemieux. When he played for the Laval Titans. If you go look at it, I forget what his numbers were, but they were just outrageous. There was one season, I think it was 200-plus points. I might be wrong by a couple points, but it's just crazy.
I'll get it here for you. So Mario Lemieux, he had the one season, 282 points. He scored 133 goals, had 149 assists in 70 games.
That's what I'm talking about, Dan. You asked me that off the cuff, and I didn't know the exact number of points. I knew it was 200 plus, and that was just crazy how good. You know, Gretz was phenomenal, especially when he was, you know, in the WHA and with the Sioux. But Mario, that 1 year in Quebec, it was crazy. It was crazy what he did.
Okay, let's shift gears. You can switch gears, but you shift them. That's the proper term. To the Toronto Maple Leafs. They were on a nice little run. Then they run into the Ottawa Senators. A hiccup game, I would call it.
I think you're being nice. I don't think Craig Berube liked that game at all as a coach last night. That's not the way he wants his team to play. They weren't hard enough. They weren't smart enough. They weren't focused enough. They were disjointed most of the game. The power play was 0 for the night. That's not the way that team's identity is built. I know they don't have Austin Matthews. I get it. But they need to be better than that, especially against a rival, an up-and-coming rival like Ottawa. You know, I've been on the other side of it in the Ottawa dressing room, both as a coach and a management person. And, you know, Toronto's a big measuring stick game, whether your team's good or not. It's always a measuring stick game. Ottawa measured up last night. Toronto did not.
Is it true the Leafs only had 2 quality scoring attempts?
I'd say that's pretty close to it. You know, anytime you're outshot by more than 15 shots in an NHL game by the opposition, that's never a good thing. And I think Toronto and Ottawa were right around there. Ottawa, obviously, with a huge shot advantage. Both teams were not very good on the power play. I think Ottawa, that's one of their bread and butters, just like Toronto's is. But, Dan, for Toronto, it's a quick turnaround. That's one of the best parts about the NHL season. You lose last night at home. You got to get on the plane. You're not real pleased with yourself. You got to go into a place like Washington where they're playing really well. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10 games. They're one of the great early season stories in the NHL, much like Winnipeg and Minnesota. And this will be interesting to see how Toronto battles back tonight in Washington.
After being shut out in a game in which you only had 2 quality scoring chances, in your mind, are you glad to be right back on the ice the next day?
As a coach, you are. I don't know about the players, but as a coach, you are, because you have a captive audience to deal with right away. Your pregame meeting is going to be intense. Your players are going to respond. You should have a real good start to start the game, Dan. And if everything fits, then you're probably going to have a hard-fought 60-minute game, which is what you want. And then for Toronto, you don't play again until Saturday on home ice against Edmonton. So you're in a good spot. If you take care of business, you get a little reward with some downtime. But I think it's really important for them to have a real good start, and I think it starts for them in their pregame meeting. I really do.
And you get to see Alex Ovechkin, who's in chase of Wayne Gretzky.
Absolutely, and that should get your attention as a player. If you're a shutdown player, if you're an offensive player, if you're a young kid coming into the league, if you're just a young pro trying to establish yourself, you get a chance to see Ovechkin up close and personal. It's pretty impressive.
And it's a pretty cool story, because I remember it was a season ago, maybe 2 seasons ago, where people said, oh, Ovechkin, he might get there, but it's going to be empty netters and stuff. Alex Ovechkin has 10 goals, and he looks like the Alex Ovechkin of old.
He does. And what's interesting about that, it's the Alexander Ovechkin of old always played on the left side as a right-hand shot. Now he's a right shot playing on the right wing, Dan, and it's making a big – I think he's adapted to it unbelievably well. With Strome as a center iceman, and the biggest thing I see is that he's getting to those areas. He used to be able to score from long range. Now he's getting in tighter, and he's making more skillful plays around the net than what we've seen over the last couple of years. And I think part of that, Dan, is the adjustment he had to make, not having Nicky Backstrom, not having Kuznetsov there. Those are pretty big holes. And so they found a centerman that he can play with in Strome, and I think it's working out well for him.
Does Ovechkin still have the power in which the Leafs will go in there and they say, hey, make sure you realize when he's on the ice?
Absolutely. Both on the power play and 5-on-5. He's never going to vacate that position that he had on the power play on the left side at the top of the circle, where he could just rip one-timers, high, short side. So you got to have a lot of courage. That's probably where Tanev's going to have a huge game for Toronto if they're shorthanded tonight on the Washington side, getting in that lane. But the other part is 5-on-5. There's a bit of a difference now because he's playing on the right side, not the left side. And so if you're a veteran in the league, a guy like Morgan Riley, he's like, whoa, I used to be on the left side and Ovechkin was on the other side, and I didn't really have to play him one-on-one. Now he might be attacking me with speed down my side of the ice. So there is a bit of a difference for the defenseman, and I think that's something that'll be pointed out probably by Mike Van Ryan, the guy that runs the defense for the Leafs.
Take that Senators game out for the Leafs, and if you look at the last week and a half for the Buds, how would you rank their power play, considering at the start of the year was about a 1 out of 10? Where would you rank it now?
Well, they were 4 for 40 the last time we did this show, so it's improved significantly. It's a lot better. They're making better decisions. Obviously it will be better when they get Austin back. I think that's a big thing that everybody understands. But the power play is definitely better. They're moving the puck better. They're making better decisions. They're finding seams that they weren't finding at the beginning of the year. So I think Mark Savard clearly got their attention as a power play coach.
When a guy like Austin Matthews is out of the lineup, the coach must see that as a rallying cry to give his team. Because, guys, this is your opportunity.
It is, and I think that's well said by you, Dan. The other part of it is guys do see it as an opportunity. They're like, okay, maybe I'm not going to stick in the first power play, but when Austin comes back, maybe I get some more sugar time in the second power play, or the coach counts me with the goalie pull or something else. So it's almost like a dress rehearsal for some of the guys who think that they should be getting more power play time.
Pierre McGuire, where are you right now? Because you're on the road.
I am. I'm in Canton, New York. I'm getting ready to do St. Lawrence women versus Clarkson women. This is like the Hatfield and McCoys. These are two of the better women's teams in U.S. college hockey. It's a nationally televised game here in the United States. The game is sold out. It's an 11 o'clock in the morning start so that all the local school children can come. It's a phenomenal experience. I was blown away when I was asked to do this. To be totally transparent, Dan, I used to coach here at St. Lawrence with the men's program, so I'm really excited to be here and have this opportunity to do it.
Those programs must have some hidden gems of barns.
Oh, my goodness gracious. So I'm in Appleton Arena right now. Dan, I have to tell you, it is one of the truly great treasures of hockey. If you have a chance and you're Canadian, you're not far from the Canadian, we're right by the border here. Just on the other side of the St. Lawrence River. It is magnificent. Appleton Arena is really one of the great treasures in all of hockey, not just U.S. college hockey. It's a phenomenal building. But I'm going to have a chance to watch so many great players today. A young lady from PEI, Abby Hustler, she's a tremendous player. Another lady from Rochester, New York, Haley Wynn, another player from Sherwood Park, Alberta, Jenna Goodwin. There's so many good young players playing in this. I'm pumped up to do it because a lot of them will be playing in the Olympics next year, either for Canada or the United States.
I assume that's a picture of the rink right behind you?
It is. It is a picture of the rink, the old Appleton Arena. It holds about 3,000 when it's full, and it's all wooden seats, and it's impeccable. It reminds me of the old Forum. You could eat off the floor. It's spectacular.
Oh, the old Forum. I went to a game there. We'd always go there for March break because the drinking age was 18 and we didn't know it was rush seating. And we had beers stuffed in our pants and we were running up the stairs and all we heard was the clink, 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 clink of the bottles falling down our pants. And then, and the best part about that was it was Habs, Nordiques, and there was a bench brawl.
Wow.
At the Forum. I look back now, and I've had the opportunity to become good friends with Chris Nyland, and Nyland was playing in that game. Do you remember that one? He's like, there was so many. I don't remember which one that was.
Well, I'll tell you a good one, just because I'll try to keep it clean and PG for our audience. I was coaching a game there. We had beat the Nordiques the night before in Quebec 2-1. We took the bus down. We were playing the next night in Montreal. It's the start of a 6-game road trip for the Hartford Whalers. And we were 5 points out of a playoff spot. It was a huge road trip for us. So we had already put 2 points in the bank in Quebec. We start the game, and we're down 4-0 really fast. And I'm mad at the officials. And I start giving it to them. And back then, there was no glass behind the bench. The fans were on top of your bench. So I'm screaming and yelling and giving it to him. And one of the referees, Richard Trotche, comes to the bench and said, Pierre, if you swear at me again, you're going to get a bench minor. So I buttoned up. At the end of the period, a lady comes walking down the stairs. Young man, you should be ashamed of yourself. That is the most despicable language. You were not raised that way. I know you were not raised that way. And I'm really thoroughly embarrassed. And the players are looking because they couldn't believe the way this lady was yelling at me. Dan, it was my mother.
I knew it. It
was my mom. So she, you talk about standards. I tried to behave myself the rest of my career as a coach without using that colorful language, but it didn't always work.
Yep, the wrath of a mom. It doesn't matter what your boss says. Wait till my mom's going to say to me.
I will not forget that game. By the way, in that game, you can look it up. Lyle Odeline, who was a tremendous player back then from Montreal, set a career record for points by a Montreal Canadiens defenseman in one game. I think he still has the record.
I'm a goalie junkie. Who was the goalie in that game for the Habs and for you?
I think Patty was the goalie for Patty Roy was a goalie, or Patrick Roy was a goalie for Montreal, I believe. And I think we had
Peter Sidorkiewicz.
I think Mike Leonarduzzi or Sean Burke. I'm not sure which one played.
Oh, Sean Burke.
But you know what I did, Dan? The next day, we had practice at 6 a.m. before we boarded our commercial flight to Winnipeg. And I know the players were mad, but I skated with the players just as if I was part of the team. And we went into Winnipeg and we won. We went into Calgary, lost in overtime, went into Vancouver and beat a real good Canucks team that went to the Stanley Cup final. and went into Edmonton and beat Edmonton. And until a couple years ago, that was the best road trip in Hartford Whalers / Carolina Hurricane history.
When you go back and talk about those games and what happened in those games, I start to draw the picture of every person involved in hockey seems to have a photographic memory and the recall ability. Like when you see Steven Stamkos asked about, hey, where were you when you scored your 56th goal? He can tell you the rink, the goalie he scored it on. Very impressive, Pierre.
Well, I was just grateful to have the opportunity to work with a lot of those great players. The other night at the Hockey Hall of Fame, I had a chance to visit with one of our old players there, Christopher Pronger, and every time I see him, I'm just so proud. You know, Brian Burke was in the room. He's the man that orchestrated the trade with San Jose and Calgary to get that second overall pick, to get Christopher at the draft in Quebec City. And, you know, I worked with him, and he worked so hard his first years in the league to establish himself. I'm his biggest fan. I just see the way he carries himself now as a man, as a father, as a husband. He's had an amazing life. He's just a special guy. I'm really proud of him.
And I'm happy to say I saw Chris Pronger before anyone knew who he was.
Peterborough
as he
Petes.
was a member, yes, of the Peterborough Petes.
Yes, sir.
Pierre, have fun calling the game, and we appreciate this, my friend.
Dan, love being on with you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.